Hey guys, welcome back. I got a question for you this week. Are you a Satanist?
Oh my gosh. Don't ease into anything.
Figured I'd just throw it
Cannonball.
right out there.
Ah!
Well, chances are you would say no. But, I thought it might be interesting, beneficial, and necessary
And fun.
to ask that question and to look at it from a different angle. A lot of times we think we understand things and know what things mean, and like the term satanic, for example, um, when we hear that term, we think maybe of child sacrifices or really evil types of things. Whatever kind of evil you can imagine, that's true. That would definitely apply to that in my view. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's a lot more nuance to that should be explored and investigated and discussed a little bit. I'd like to talk about a couple of guys just really quickly that you may or may not have heard of. One of them is a guy named Anton LaVey, and Anton LaVey. I'm not going to read you much about that, but just some of you may know who he is. But let's see, I think maybe have him here. Let's see, no, that's Aleister Crowley that we'll maybe get to in a minute. Here's Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey literally wrote the book on Satanism. He wrote the Satanic Bible in 1969. He wrote a number of books, and according to Wikipedia here, it says that he was an American author, musician, and Satanist.
Musician, I didn't know that.
And he was the founder of the Church of Satan and the religion of Satanism. And he authored several books, including the Satanic Bible, the Satanic Rituals, the Satanic Witch, the Devil's Notebook, and Satan Speaks.
The Satanic Witch?
The Satanic Witch, yeah. A lot of different things. In addition, he released 3 albums, including The Satanic Mass, Satan Takes a Holiday, and Strange Magic.
Oh my gosh.
He played a minor on-screen role and served as technical advisor for the 1975 film The Devil's Reign, and served as host and narrator for Nick Bogus, I guess that 1989 Mondo film Death Scenes. Okay, well, I had heard of him before and knew a little bit about him. Not much. I knew he had that he wrote the Satanic Bible, and he one of his quotes, and I've got several here, but we won't really look at them. You can look him up if you're interested. But Anton LaVey, one of his quotes attributed to him is, "Say unto thine own heart, I am mine own redeemer." Heart, Anton LaVey, do what you want as long as it's paying off for you. But once it becomes a liability, then then something is wrong, and you better find out what it is.
Never mind anybody else.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch deeper on more of the philosophy of this, because people have these images from Hollywood and stuff on there about what Satanism or satanic might mean, and it may not be exactly accurate. And I'm not sure that I'm portraying it as accurately and honestly as I can, but admittedly, I'm not an expert on this.
Disclaimer.
I guess one of the things that got me thinking about this recently, a while back, and I won't divulge the name of who this was from, but on Facebook, well, I lost my place here. So there was a meme sent out that seen by a lot of people. And it says, any discussion about what the Bible does or does not condone is a distraction. It says, sorry, can't read my own writing here.
TGU, trust. Trust is not.
No, it's not trust. It's, oh, sorry. The U.S. is not a theocracy, and religion
Tens.
in religion. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. The U.S. is not a theocracy, and religion tenets should not be used as the basis for or justification of public policy. Ever. Okay, that's the mean. Let me try that one more time. Any discussion about what the Bible does or does not condone is a distraction. The U.S. is not a theocracy, and religious tenets shouldn't be used as the basis for or justification of public policy ever. So this was sent out. I noticed, and it was by someone that I knew was politically liberal. And I was looking at it and thinking, well, I don't agree with this for a number of different reasons. But I looked in the right-hand corner of the quote, and it showed where the quote was from. And it said, Church of Satan was who put this quote out. And I mentioned there, I commented, and I said, well, you might want to check the source in the bottom right corner there. But it got me kind of thinking about this subject a little bit again, and what exactly. So the church, that's something the Church of Satan believes, is that the Bible shouldn't be used we shouldn't consider the Bible of what it condones or approves of. It's a distraction to the Church of Satan. And according to the Church of Satan, the United States is not a theocracy, and religious tenets shouldn't be used as the basis for or justification of public policy ever.
But if they are a religion...
Yeah, this is a religion.
If Satanism is a religion and they're the one putting this out...
is the one saying this.
Well,
yeah. Okay, so I thought that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, when you look at it through that lens and you see what what the political beliefs of Satanists are, what the political information, the political propaganda or whatever that Satanists are putting out, what do they believe? Well, that's what they believe. And a lot of other people believe that too. That don't consider themselves don't consider themselves Satanists.
Right.
And they're not consciously worshiping the devil or doing
sacrificing. Right.
Well, they kind of do. Most of them do support child sacrifice, if we're honest about that. Adamantly so, and they were very displeased when that began to be rolled back a while back recently. So looking at it a little bit further, now this is where it gets, a little bit murky. I'm not at all an expert on this guy. Here's another guy that you might have heard of. For you, some of you might be familiar with this guy from the Ozzy Osbourne song, Mr. Crowley. It's about the occultist, Aleister Crowley. And again, according to Wikipedia, says that he was an English occultist, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. He founded the religion of Thelema, identifying himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus. In the late 20th century, a prolific writer, I'm having trouble talking again today.
It's okay.
He published widely after the course of his life.
He published widely.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry.
Wildly and
No,
widely.
I misunderstood. I just said wildly. I didn't know what that meant.
Widely, and... Okay.
Ibba-dibba.
Getting tongue-tied. Anyway, he didn't, from what I understand, Crowley did not ever claim to be a Satanist. But, according to, this is from satanservice.org, satanservice.org, regarding Aleister Crowley. They say, according to satanservice.org, an author of occult and esoteric text, a proto-Satanist, and proponent of neo-Gnosticism. And so they call him a proto-Satanist. And he wrote a number of things, and he considered himself the great beast and identified with the number 666. He
You can't make this stuff
he was
up.
known as by many as the most evil man in the world.
Aleister Crowley?
Oh yeah.
Worse
And,
than LaVey. See, I always thought...
according to many people, yeah. Of course, he came along before Anton LaVey.
That's right. I forgot.
And so anyway, according to SatanService.org, he was a proto-Satanist. And basically, he didn't ever exactly claim to be a Satanist. I don't know that that term was around really as such at that time.
Can I ask you something, or will I get you off of your train? So, I don't mean to be dense, but what's a proto-Satanist?
Well, he paved the way, basically, for the religion of Satanism.
So preceded it.
Yeah, he sort of laid the groundwork for the people that would come after, as I understand it, like Anton LaVey, who wrote the Satanic Bible.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you can read about him, but I think that he's someone in the know, and that someone that would be embraced by Satanists.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, it sounds like, based on what you're saying there.
Well, he said here, according to Aleister Crowley, he said, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." In other words, do your own thing, or do what you want, is the most important thing.
Well, and that's going to be a popular message.
Oh yeah, and it was definitely in the 60s.
Well, not only
sure.
in the 60s, even in ancient Israel, when religions would come along and basically say, you don't have to keep that old Mosaic law, you can do this and you can do that. It was always a better message, much better received by people when they could determine their own right and wrong, good and bad, when they did what was right in their own eyes. I mean, of course, that's going to be a lot easier in a lot of ways. You don't have to meet any standards. But then there's a problem when you die and you have to face judgment.
Yeah.
And when you're alive, right.
And even before that. But so hopefully, and I know this is just a quick thumbnail. I have not given an in-depth history of Satanism or anything here. I mean, and I would have to study up a lot before I did that, it just doesn't, at this point, interest me enough to do that. I have so many other things that I want to focus upon. But I hope that what you're seeing, and what began to get me thinking, is that the picture of Satanism and the philosophy, how does it manifest in the earth today? What are its political beliefs? What is its philosophy? A lot of people have that same philosophy as well-known Satanists, as the Church of Satanists, the Church of Satan, as I showed the quote. A lot of people, in fact, on Facebook, when I pointed out to them that, hey, you might want to look at the source of this quote that you posted, one of the ladies that I didn't know snapped back at me, and she said, "Okay, here, I fixed it now. Is that better?" And she just took that off. Which
is weird.
Yeah. And I said, "Well, does that..."
It doesn't change anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. I said, but she said, "I have a feeling you don't care either way." And she said, "You're right. I don't care either way if it's on there or not, or the source of it. It doesn't matter." And apparently a lot of other people felt the same way as that lady. Now, let's contrast that philosophy with a biblical paradigm and worldview. Well, it's, as you might have guessed, it's really the antithesis. The biblical worldview is the antithesis of that. And so, like we have in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13, Solomon, who the book is attributed to in the book of Ecclesiastes, he concludes that book. He goes through all of this, and if you haven't ever read the book of Ecclesiastes, you should. It's a very philosophical book, and he's trying to figure out things. He's trying to understand life and meaning and purpose, and he goes to all of these extremes, and he lives the life of a complete hedonist, and he tries pleasure. You know, he tries everything he wants to.
Projects, industry,
Yeah.
I mean, goals.
Builds.
Yeah.
He
Businesses.
does all of that, trying to see what matters and what is important and what could you get, you know, pleasure or contentment from. And then after trying everything, he concludes with this. He says, I'll just give you here in verse 13, Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Almost, I mean, the very antithesis really of the Aleister Crowley quote, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. They came to completely opposite conclusions
Kill,
there.
steal, and destroy.
Yeah.
And when you hear kill, steal, and destroy, you know, the way I was raised, and I think it applies, you think of the world. Like you think of to kill, steal, and destroy what God has made in the world. But when you start looking at the foundations of these ideologies, they're here to steal, kill, and destroy from the fabric of what God made to be true, which is kind of crazy because when you do that, you're pulling at the very fabric of creation, the creation that you live in. You're tearing down with your hands, absolutely. You're unrolling that fabric, unraveling that fabric. Because if you topple the truth of the divine will and purpose that creation is built on, how can you not destroy the world you live in? So, but you see this over and over and over in the Bible. And is it Dante, or I kind of get these confused. There's a poem basically where somebody, I don't know if it was Lucifer or Satan, was just basically like, his attitude was, I'd rather be destroyed doing my own thing than serving God.
I think it's Paradise Lost by Milton.
Okay.
Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
Yeah. But I mean, even beyond that, even if it meant destroying the very fabric of everything. There's a line, if you've seen the movie Tombstone, there's a point toward the end where Wyatt Earp is trying to understand Johnny Ringo's motivation because he's about to fight him. And he's asking Doc Holliday, you know, basically why is he so angry, or what's at the heart of him. And Doc Holliday basically says he wants revenge, and Wyatt Earp says why, and he says for being born. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it always kind of gives me chills a little bit when I watch the movie because there's truth in it. And there's truth in it, I believe, when it comes to Satan. Not that I'm an expert on Satan at all, but some of the strategies and goals of the satanic agenda really do seem to be revenge for God and the ways of God, and just a hatred, like just trying to bring the whole system down. And there's even another movie with Keanu Reeves and the guy that plays Satan in it. I can't think of it.
I'll think of it.
The Devil's Advocate, maybe, is the movie. And they are, through being lawyers and trying to make to do injustice with every decision that they make the court give them, they want to just push it in the face of God, like acquittal after acquittal after acquittal of every wrong, ugly, bad, unjust thing on the world to just be a stink in the nose of God. And you see this theme over and over and over, and you would say, well, that's a book or that's a movie. But at the heart of what seems to drive Satan and that whole rebellious, destructive force is it's not. It is a sense of revenge against God for something. I mean, we might think that atheism among humans is the worst enemy, but it's really not. They're kind of ambivalent. And and a lot of atheists, I think, have the same motivation. They seem to be very angry about the concept of God. You know, a true atheist to me is just one who doesn't believe in God and they don't have any angst. But the ones that are angsty about it, why are you so mad at the idea of God? I mean, you almost believe in him to want to topple the whole thing or whatever. And I think your point was we have these ideas of what Satanism is in the world and how it's very divided from everything else. Like it's its own bad thing over here that's really, really bad,
Right.
and they're stabbing people in the heart and saying praise Satan and all of that. But it's much more insidious.
Yeah.
Much more insidious, because people that would never identify themselves as Satanists can still partake of the drink and food. I mean,
The whole
Yeshua.
agenda.
Yes, well, and Yeshua said, "Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, basically you have no part of me." And he was speaking symbolically of the salvation. But I think that there is an unholy partaking, and kind of lost my train of thought with that. Well, in terms of how people are partaking of this energy, and they don't necessarily identify with it as such, but anybody, Christian or otherwise, who has this idea in their heart that I'll do my own will, basically. I mean, you start having to ask. You do.
Right.
Well, you do. I mean, you start having to ask questions, and those that belong to God come back to God, and those that don't belong to God continue to do the will of their Father, like Yeshua said.
Yeah. Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't quote Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was in his hour of extreme testing there. In that's going to be in Luke 22:42, one of the places. He said, "Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." So that is the antithesis of Satanism, is the prayer he prayed. He had his own will that was different from the Father's. He wanted, his will was for that cup to pass from him because it was going to be horrific what he was about to face.
And he was human.
Yeah, and he was human, and he didn't want to deal with that, as no one would. The whole world literally on his shoulders there. But he submitted his own will. He said, "Not my will. You're the authority.
Right.
And I will conform my will and submit my will to your will." Satanism is the opposite of that. And again, this is Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 24, in discussing basically the events that would unfold until the culmination of his coming and the kingdom being set up on earth. And he said, if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. So the adversary, Hasatan, Satan, isn't going to present, usually he is more and more bold about it, present a lot of his philosophies exactly as they are. But it is couched in religious language and in political language many times.
Very much.
And so you have to, I think it would be very prudent for everyone who, we don't want to be deceived. I certainly don't want to. Have you been deceived? You know, I have, and you have too. And unless we're actively seeking to align our will with the will of the Father and submit our will to His and ask Him to open our eyes and give us wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, we're being swept away by the current of the world. And the world's current is satanic. And that satanic system has political beliefs. It votes in a certain way. And so I think it would be important to say, do your religious beliefs reflect a satanic philosophy? Do your political beliefs, do your beliefs in the way you act, in the way you carry yourself throughout this world, is it satanic? Is it about doing your own will, your own thing, finding a church that believes like you do, that does things the way you want them done, and doesn't do things that offend you? Is it about voting of how you think what will benefit you personally, that is your prime motivator? And some of your biggest voting issues are abortion, and you want it and you want more of it, and you want no restrictions of that, or very little.
Or you support people that will vote for it every time. I'm sorry, but that's the
even
truth.
if you claim that you're not for abortion, if that's your history of being of voting out people who would stop it and keep electing people who will ever keep perpetuating it. Rush Limbaugh used to say, and I think that he was right, even though it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek in a dark way. He said that abortion is the main sacrament of liberalism, which is pretty hardcore thing to say. But when you think about it, let's just remove the word liberalism there and use the term satanic for a second. And I'm not saying that it's always
Equal.
the same,
Right.
but what I started out reading there, the quote that was passed around all over Facebook, that meme, any discussion about what the Bible does or does not condone is a distraction. The U.S. is not a theocracy, and religious tenets shouldn't be used as the basis for or justification of public policy, ever. Well, most liberals agree with that. And again, that was published, at least that's whose name was on there, was the Church of Satan at the bottom. That is satanic philosophy and liberal philosophy.
And satanic religion.
Mm-hmm. That is satanic religion and philosophy and and a political philosophy too.
Well, and I understand the founding fathers not wanting any one church system or any
That
one...
is another discussion.
It is. If any one religious structure dictating how policy is written, I understand that. But you can never separate public policy from what is right. Because if you're going to have to make law keepers like a law force, like the police or whatever, and you're going to make courts, and you're going to make lawyers, and you're going to make judges and systems by which people are judged either guilty or innocent in terms of what they do and what they perpetrate in society, you're going to have a standard of justice that is based on what is right.
Yep.
And so that's going to be at the heart of what is at the heart of a lot of religion. I'm not talking about dogmatic theology. I'm talking about what is right. If you go out and just out of sheer meanness pick up a rock and hit your neighbor in the head because you like the way the blood looks and you like causing him pain, that's a problem. And it doesn't take any one religious group to dictate, like it doesn't, the Baptist, it's not about being Baptist or Jehovah's Witness or Hindu or anything else. It's just wrong to do. And when we act like we don't know that, it's a lie.
Mm-hmm. That's something I'd like to get into maybe in the next video, a little bit more on that, which were all very good points. I think this might be a good place to close, and I hope we got your wheels turning a little bit. Some of you might be offended. That's okay. You can post your comments down below.
I didn't mean to offend.
Be sure and share the video if you think it's valuable or that you might get other folks thinking about this subject. But if you do believe, if you identify as a believer, whatever you call yourself, a true seeker, a believer, and you believe that we're in the last days and one of the main characteristics of the last days is deception, well, it would be prudent to begin to do some deep introspection and question
I agree.
What really is satanic. Mm-hmm. Not what Hollywood or maybe how our church presented it. What are they really doing? Mm-hmm. What types of policies are they pushing toward, and what types of policies are they trying to squash, and see who all supports that. And I have to say, and may offend some people with this, and that's just something you're going to have to deal with if it's the case. If the way you vote and your political ideology is like that of Satanist, I don't see how you could possibly be of the Spirit of God. You're of a different spirit, or at least you have been so deceived that you're really in mortal danger of just falling off the complete cliff there. I don't think that there's no way you are led by the Spirit of truth or have the Spirit of truth
if you're
ideologically you align on every political issue with Satanists.
Well, and when I say in error, like you've said before, we all believe things that I'm sure aren't true. But there's going to be a point where it's going to be a cutoff. It's like, are you being led by and large by the Spirit of God? Because if you're not, you are going to be swept away by the spirit that controls the world. There's no middle ground. There's no neutrality. You're
Right.
either being actively led by the Spirit of God, or you're being absorbed into the world mind,
All
the
right.
world
And
spirit.
I want to maybe say, I know, I as you probably do, maybe you are a Democrat. Maybe you are I mean, let's lay our cards out on the table. Maybe you are a liberal Democrat or whatever you call yourself. I know some people that I care about very much that are of that ideology. But you really have to question. I mean, if your belief system and the way you vote is at the core of it is satanic, of do your own will, and that the U.S. that the Bible should not be used as a basis to condone or judge. What does it say? Does or does not condone anything to do with the Bible? That the Bible should not be used as a basis.
If
George
it's
Washington said that basically that no country could endure. I'm botching this without religious conviction, and
yes,
and many of the others too. And it's been forgotten. People's memories are so short. People want to talk about separation of church and state. Um, well, where were our schools? If you've ever seen Little House on the Prairie, and even much more recently than that, the school was at church, was at the church. This is how it all started in this country. The people attended school and had their town hall meetings at the church house. It was all at the same building. That is the early days and founding of this country.
well, there used to be a sense in the country of right and wrong that was embedded in society. And then on top of that, maybe you were religious or not religious, but society itself knew
Was
what
more moral.
Yes, it knew what right and wrong was, even if they didn't identify as religious or Christian or whatever. It still got seeped into the bedrock and the foundation of the country. I don't know what I'm looking at right now with this country. I don't. And so that's why we're bringing this up.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. I mean, if you're a believer, the Bible has to be the foundation of everything. And so if it isn't,
And who
you have to start asking why.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, guys. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
All right. Do your test. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my time.
Thought I was going to do the test.
You were deliberating like, whoa.
Hey, everybody. I'm Keith Murray, and with me this week is the Long Island medium. I'm in Julie.
You'll pay for that later.
The Long Island medium with
The long-eyed medium.
Long Island medium with glasses.
And how do you know who the Long
I've
Island
seen
medium?
her on television.
Have you? Have you
Yeah.
watched her show and you've
No.
subscribed faithfully to her
Not
because
really.
you're trying to be in contact with your dead
That's-
loved ones?
Yeah, that's probably not true.
Well, how do you
Me
know?
starting rumors.
You're the one that brought it up. Called me her.
Okay,
That's what you get, okay?
I think we all know.
I think we all
that
don't
you
know.
look like her.
I mean, you look like Prince and somebody else.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Prince,
When he was alive.
when he was alive, yeah, I hope so. You freak.
Are we done testing?
Hope so.
Okay, goodbye. Hey, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe to be notified whenever we release new content and to help other people find us out there on the vast plains of YouTube land. If you have a question or a topic you'd like for us to do a video about, just leave it in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Later, y'all.